Okay, hey everybody. My name is Amber Spratlin. I work in the library at Maryville University, and we're going to talk about research strategies. I'm going to call this Research Boot Camp for Nursing 601, evidence-based practice in nursing. I've already heard from a handful of students in 601 this term to talk about research questions and how do I find stuff. So if you find yourself panicking, trying to find resources, you're in the right spot. Hopefully by the end of this hour, I will have you squared away, ready to go. You'll be just searching machines. I want you to be able to identify appropriate resources for your evidence-based practice research. And I want you to be able to form a PICO-based search string in Discovery. Discovery is our major library search engine. So hopefully by the end of the hour, we'll be doing these things and you'll be pros. Let's start with kind of a more open discussion though. Let's talk about how we seek information in our everyday lives versus what's expected of us for this class and in general in the medical field. How do you find information in your daily life? And I want honest answers only. Sometimes people feel compelled to say, well, I only read the finest literature. But let's be honest, if you don't know the answer to a question, what do you do? Do you pull out your phone? Do you look on your laptop, turn on the TV, look at TikTok? I'm definitely guilty of that. I find out a lot of news through social media. You know, sometimes I'm scrolling through Facebook. I just found out about something that happened in Georgia today as I was scrolling through Facebook, and I don't know that I would have found that information otherwise. So a lot of you are saying Google, ask Siri. Siri knows everything. It's amazing. Mostly Google things. Yeah, Google is kind of our go-to now. And that is great and legitimate. Google is an incredible tool. It's also an incredible tool for your research. Somebody says, I also use my news homepage, but for questions, Google. Yeah, same. If I don't know the answer, if I need directions to somewhere, if I want to know the menu of a place before I visit so that I know what to order and don't feel silly standing at the menu not knowing what to say, Google is my best friend. For evidence-based practice research, we can still utilize Google, but there are some other things we need to know about the information that serves us. So, okay, most of us use Google to find information, and that's great. However, in your evidence-based practice research, the expectation for this course and for your time in a master's program is that you're going to use peer-reviewed materials. Now, the difference between a peer-reviewed material and any given response that you might find on Google is that peer-reviewed materials go through a long process before they're published. And this is kind of what that process looks like. Essentially, an expert, an academic in a field writes an article, submit it to a publication that gets sent out blindly to a lot of other experts who tear it apart, and you feel terrible when you get back your edits. The expert has to rewrite the article to fit, to make sure that it is meeting the highest standard of quality. It gets published and typically hides behind a paywall. And so oftentimes the results that you find in Google, you may hit a paywall and find a website that wants you to pay for content. What the library does is it pays for that content for you. We have subscriptions to thousands and thousands of academic journals that you can pull content from that otherwise you would not be able to access on the open web. And then you use that article, and that's what the whole cycle looks like. Now, other places that things are published, you know, regular websites, blogs, the recipe website where they tell you their whole family history before they get to the potato salad part. Those are instantly published usually. There's not really an editorial process. Somebody has a thought and there's very little time in between having a thought and then it being published for the world to see. So the peer review part of it is very important. It's important also for us to recognize that there is some inherent privilege in this process as well. The voices who are most often heard in peer-reviewed journals are from English-speaking countries. They're from countries where this kind of academia process is normal, and that leaves out a lot of people. And so it's important to be aware of that. And also there's privilege inherent in the fact that the average person can't access an academic journal without paying for it. So we all want to be, aware of those things and aware of a system that may be stacked against certain people. So as you go through your academic career and as you go through your professional career, I encourage you to think about how you can elevate the voices that may be left out of the conversation, but still have very important things to say. That being said, for the purposes of this course, we're going to look for peer-reviewed materials. Let's move along. One of the things that I have heard from your faculty members that is often an issue in Nursing 601 is that people have a hard time telling primary and secondary sources apart. So when we're looking at those academic articles, those scholarly articles, some of them are considered primary sources and some of them are considered secondary sources. And for this class, they want you to use more primary sources than secondary sources. So what does that mean? Essentially, if we have to break it down, we could put them in two groups. The primary sources are your first-hand accounts. Think primary, first-hand. It's original research. They're collecting new data. They're doing an experiment. They may say we measured because they are measuring outcomes from the data that they collect. And it may be called a randomized controlled trial. These are the kinds of articles that you're looking for. Secondary sources are still really useful to you, but they are not necessarily the things that you want to directly cite for this particular course. That's a secondhand account. So think secondary, secondhand. They may observe the data collected by other people. They may synthesize information from other studies. They may take other studies and take the data gathered by other people and make something new out of it. It may be called a review. They draw conclusions from other data sources. It may be called a meta-analysis or a systematic review. You've probably seen the word systematic review already if you've started looking for literature for this class. Those are secondary sources. So you want to kind of shy away from that and lean toward the primary. The good news is that the secondary sources that you find can still lead you to primary sources if you go to the end of the article and look at the references section. The articles that they quote in secondary sources are probably primary sources. And so if you find a systematic review that's just perfect, but you don't feel like you can cite it, go to their references section and see if you can pull the sources they used. And that's one of my pro tips of the day. Don't just throw it away if it says systematic review. I hope that that's a helpful differentiation for you too. We have seen a lot of people struggle when they're looking at the articles trying to figure out if it's primary or secondary. So just bear these things in mind. If no questions, let's move on. So the resources you're looking for, again, are primary sources and they're peer-reviewed sources. So how do we find those things? So who here has used Google, PubMed, or Google Scholar to find resources for a paper? Whether this program or another program. Previously, yes. Use Google Scholar. Anyone a PubMed surfer? Used PubMed before. Okay. So the good news is you can continue to do that. That's totally fine. They're all perfectly legit places to find information. And when you leave Maryville with your degree in hand and no longer have access to our library sources, those sources will still be available to you. So by By the end of this, we'll be able to identify what a scholarly resource is, and some of those do exist on the open web. PubMed in particular is a really cool index and repository of articles that have been written in medical journals. However, it is typically just an index and it's hard to find full text there. So it'll make you aware of the literature that exists and you can read an abstract, but you oftentimes can't read the whole article. So if that's something that our PubMed user has run into before, you're not alone, and that's very frustrating, but that is all they have intended to do with PubMed is index things. I'm going to focus on the library today because I work there, and also because we do have the subscriptions to all of those academic journals that you're going to need. I like to explain how the library works before I actually jump into searching for things, because I feel like a lot of people go their entire educational career with librarians and professors throwing a lot of library words at them and never explaining what that is. So I like to think of the library as a layered thing. So the center layer, the thing that you're after, is an article. It's the smallest unit of research, right? That's what you're trying to find. But articles are contained in those academic journals or a magazine or a trade publication. So one journal or magazine, periodical, contains many articles. But then databases contain thousands and thousands of journals. So you see this is growing exponentially as we go out from the layers. With the article being the smallest, articles are housed in journals, journals are housed in databases. Databases are typically subject specific, so it will be medical, or it will be education, or it will be English, or whatever the subject happens to be. The biggest layer of all is discovery. And that's where I'm going to encourage most of you to live in your research. Discovery is a search engine, and it searches most of the library's databases at once. So instead of going directly to like a CINAHL database or Ovid or one of those places, you can search in Discovery and search all of them at once. And if you get really good at it, you can find results there faster than you would be able to in an individual medical database anyway. So let's talk about what that looks like. Finally, we're at the searching part. You guys know your PICO questions. We've learned about PICO: population, intervention, comparison, and outcome. Hopefully by this point you have already created your PICO question. Well, the good news is we can use Discovery search to directly address your PICO question. So at this point, I hope that you are familiar with this page, the library's homepage, but if not, this is maryville.edu/library. And this is your new hub of research operations for the time being. If you scroll down, there is a search bar down here. And this is the discovery search. This is where I want you to start things. But instead of typing in a search here in this bar, I want all of you to click on advanced search. And this brings up a new menu with more options, and it can look a little bit harried. But instead of using these boxes for this course, I want you to use PICO Search. PICO Search brings up a search bar specifically for people with PICO questions. And it has a line for your problem or population, intervention, comparison, and outcome. What you want to do is insert keywords into each of these lines that are relevant to your PICO question. So if somebody doesn't mind, I'd love an example of what your research is about. What is your PICO question, so that we can search for your thing. In laboring women delivering in the hospital, do positions other than lithotomy, I hope I said that right, lead to decreased incidence of assisted deliveries? Okay, excellent. And then it looks like I may have a second comment on the AMA with another PICO question. So I I want to toss this to the group because your voices are important. For the PICO question currently in the Zoom chat, if we had to boil down the population into keywords or very short phrases, who would the population be? Women in labor. Yes. So women in labor, we'll type that in here and see what happens. What is our intervention? Position change. Let's say position. Am I saying lithotomy correctly, by the way? Please feel free to correct me. I'm not a medical person. I'm just a library person. What is our comparison? That would be lithotomy, I think. And then our outcome would be decreased incidence of assisted deliveries. So if we can boil that down as far as possible into its root parts, how do we do that? This to me is the biggest challenge of research, by the way, is deciding what your keywords will be. Cesarean sections. I'm also not a labor and delivery person. So I think that is a good way to go, though, instead of assisted deliveries, unless, Gabrielle, if you don't mind sharing with us, what are other ways that you could have an assisted delivery?
Can you hear me?
Yes. Hello.
Okay, wonderful. Sorry, I've been reading everybody's, and I understand that this is probably a really complex PICO question. But yes, so you can have an episiotomy, a forceps delivery, a vacuum delivery, or sometimes I say worst case scenario for some mommies is a cesarean section. So yes, you were right on track, and yes, you are saying lithotomy correctly.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Okay. So what we're going to do on this last line for outcome, because there are so many different outcomes, we can list them all individually if we want to, and we can write a capital OR in between the different keywords. And what that tells the search engine to do is that it says, I will take an article about all of these things, plus I will take cesarean sections, or I will take forceps delivery, or I will take vacuum delivery, or I will take episiotomy. And it will return all of the articles that have any of those things in them, regardless of whether or not they have all of them in them. Oh, complicated deliveries. That's also a good one. Thank you, Chad. You guys are full of good ideas. So we're going to include all of the things just to see what happens, because this is a treasure hunt kind of experience. We're going to try things, and if they don't work, we'll go back and we'll try something else. So we have successfully filled out our PICO search bar, and we're going to hit submit and cross our fingers. And you can see here at the top, it has created a complex search string. What it did is it took all of those different lines and it put ands in between them. Now, and tells the search engine, I need the article to have this thing, and also this thing, and also this thing. It has to address all of the pieces. Now from here, this is where we're going to pare things down. So I don't know how many of you enjoy online shopping, but I do. I shop online way too much. Again, Instacart, way too much. Amazon, way too much. But one of the things that we see in this interface when we're searching is something that we see often in online shopping, and it's the filters on the left-hand side of the screen. A lot of people just glaze right over this and don't see them, but they are your most important tools when it comes to finding exactly the right article. So we have all of our search terms in, and we found almost 200,000 results. And that is far too many results for any of you to go through. But the perfect article is probably in here. So we're going to pare things down using the filters. The first one that I want to show you is the peer-reviewed filter. Cue the magic lights. Everything is perfect. This filter will filter out everything from a magazine. It will filter out ebooks. It will filter out trade journals. It will filter out all of the things except for the articles that go through the peer review process we were talking about before. Hallelujah. So we're going to click that, and we're starting at 175,000 results. And with any luck, that cut it down to 38,000. Now, 38,000 is still too many. You obviously cannot read all of those. So we're going to continue with our filters. Since you're in a medical field, we know that we want literature from at least the last 10 years, preferably the last 5. So our publication date filter here on the side is going to be our best friend for that. Instead of having articles here from 1833 to 2022, we are going to change this to 2012, which is the last 10 years. And we're going from 38,000 to 20,000. So we just cut off another 18,000 results, which is good news. Any questions on this so far? The filters are your friends. Okay, let's keep going. Again, if you have questions along the way, just pop them into the Menti poll and I will see them as soon as I see them. The next filter is the subject filter that I want to talk about. This one can be the most difficult to explain, but it's also one of the most powerful filters. So think of the subject filter like a hashtag on social media. So if you go to Twitter or Instagram, you might see a post with a ton of hashtags at the end of it. And if you click on those hashtags, it will take you to all the other posts that also use that hashtag. This is very, very similar in that all of these articles are tagged with subject tags. And what you do by using the subject filter, I'm going to click show more here at the bottom so that we see a full list. What you're doing when you use this filter is that you are filtering by only articles with specific subject tags. So Gabrielle, I think, is our PICO person. Do you see any subject tags on this list that just really resonate with you and make you think, yes, I think that all of the articles that I need are going to be tagged that way?
So far, no. I mean, I guess we could narrow it down to the C section, the 2,891.
Okay. What about pregnancy complications?
Yes and no, because this will be at delivery. Do you know what I mean? So technically a delivery complication. I guess, you know what, maybe, I don't know. I have never got this deep into research. So I'm kind of okay with, even the episiotomy.
Yes, I see that. Yeah. Yes. What about delivery obstetric? A word I can't say.
Yep, obstetric. Yeah, let's do that one. That's great.
Okay, let's go for that one. We're going to hit update. And my tip for all of you is that we're going to use one subject filter at a time. And then we can come back to the subject filter and add another filter later if we want to further filter. So one at a time. Now we only have 371 results, which is feeling a lot better. But maybe we want to go even further. However, here you go. I think this is the one for you. If we wanted to go further and say filter by language, there are foreign language articles in Discovery. You can see that there are at least 14 in Portuguese. If you wanted to filter to only 1 or 2 languages, you can do that here. Be aware that some articles are not tagged for language, and so you may be eliminating things that could be really good for you, but don't happen to have this language tag on them. And then geography is another way that you can filter further. So if you are looking at a population in a specific country or on a specific continent, you can filter that here as well. However, some articles are not tagged for geography. And so you may be eliminating things, again, that were studied in other countries that could be perfect for you if you limit only to the USA, for example. So unless it's very, very important that you have only the population of a certain country, know that this is here for you if you need to filter further, but use it sparingly. So at this point, we have 371 results, and that's better than the huge number that we started with, which I think was almost 200,000. We've done that just by filtering and by using the PICO search bar. At this point, this is when you're going to start actually looking at the articles. And first, it has to open 3 doors for you. Okay. For an article to be worth your time, it has to open 3 doors. The first door is, do I like the title? And liking the title can also mean, do I understand the title? Because there can be a lot of lofty language here. I think sometimes people write just to make themselves feel good. And so if you don't feel good about the title, we move on. But let's say you feel really good about a title and you want to check it out further. You click on the title of the article, and if you are off campus like I am, it will prompt you to sign in. Sign in with your Maryville user account. So first part of your email and the same password. And then it will bring you to a page that looks like this. A lot of people also breeze by this page and don't look at it, but there's a lot of really helpful information here, especially if you end up wanting to cite this later. All of the publication information that you need to cite an article is right here on this page. If you want to save this link for yourself, you don't want to use this link up here. This is not a permanent link. It will go away after about 8 hours. You want to click the permalink button down here in the right corner. Are they working on making this so that this link works? Yes. I don't know when that will happen, but it's in progress. Until then, click permalink and copy this link for yourself. And then you can put that in a Word document or an email or wherever you want to keep things. That is the link to keep. And it will bring you back to this page every single time. Now it's time for the second door. We're going to read the abstract. So if you scroll down a little bit, you'll see a section titled Abstract, and this is where you can read a summary of the article. You do not have to read whole articles if you don't know what's in them. Just read this paragraph, and then you'll know if that is something that is worthwhile and usable for you, or if you need to move on. If that second door opens and you're like, yes, that is the abstract for me, save that link and then come back and look over here to see if we have a full text option for the article. Now, I said that we subscribe to a lot of journals that you wouldn't be able to find on the open web, and that is true. Thousands and thousands, maybe a million, so many journals. But there are also results in here for journals we don't have access to, but that shouldn't stop you. If for some reason we do not have access, you'll see an option here that says request through interlibrary loan. If we don't have it, another library does. And the greatest thing about libraries to me is that we all talk to each other and we share resources with one another. So we can request that article for you from another library and it will be emailed to you digitally. So don't feel like if we don't have full text, that's the end of the road, especially at this level of your education. You're going to run into that. So please feel free to use that interlibrary loan service. But in this case, we do have full text. So we're going to click on PDF full text over here, and it will open the article for us. At this point, you can print it, you can download it using the PDF tools over here. There's still a permalink option if you'd rather just save the link. And then the third door is you read the article and hopefully save the article and want to use the article. But that's the third door. So door number 1, do I like the title? Door number 2, do I like the abstract? Door number 3, do I like the whole article? I want to show you guys one more thing with the PICO search bar. So we went to advanced search and we hit PICO Search. You can also hit PICO Search from the results page, and it will bring up a fresh search bar. Oftentimes, when people use the PICO search bar and they have every line filled out, the results are sparse, and sometimes it's too much. So it can be very difficult to find articles that compare very dissimilar things, especially if you're doing a PICO question where the comparison is not using a specific method or not utilizing some intervention. It can be really difficult for the search engine to really understand what you mean. So my advice to you is to leave the comparison line blank. And instead of filling out all of these, fill out your population, fill out the intervention and the outcome, and leave comparison blank. You can leave any of these lines blank and the bar will still work. Essentially what it's doing is just putting all of the things together into a search string for you. And then if you want to find articles about the comparison, you can come back, do a fresh search, and use the comparison line in the intervention slot. This is where the synthesis part of your work is going to come into play. A lot of people get very frustrated when they try to find articles about exactly the topic that they're writing about, and the article doesn't exist. But that is the challenge before you, is that you need to find articles that speak to pieces of your PICO question and then synthesize the information to make something new. I think of this like making PICO because I, again, am not a medical person. And when I hear the word PICO, I think of salsa. So think of your articles as the different ingredients that come together to make pico de gallo. Okay, you're going to find a tomato with your population, and you're going to find a jalapeno with your intervention, and maybe a lime with a different intervention. It's how you put those things together at the end to make something new that really counts. So if you can't find the exact article about your question, do not fear, don't be dismayed, try not to be frustrated. It can be a frustrating process. But remember that as you find articles that speak to a piece of your PICO question, that's still relevant to you. So try not to be too selective when you're looking in a discovery search. Any questions about using discovery, where we went, what we looked at, the PICO search bar, any of that? I'm going to give you a little bit of time to type. Where did you pull that PICO search up at? Thank you for your question. I will show you again. Library homepage. We scroll down to the search bar, but instead of typing here, we're going to hit advanced search. Then from the advanced search screen, we'll click PICO search beneath all of these little search bars, and we type our PICO things in there. Let's talk about a couple more things before I let you go. So you remember the graph I showed you before about the layers that the library resources come in. Well, we started on that outside layer, the shell of the egg. It has everything inside of it. But sometimes when you're searching in discovery, you'll still find that the results are not what you want. Because it does contain all of the library's databases, including things from other disciplines, you might run into a problem where you're getting more results for other disciplines than you are for the medical field. And in that case, you can move one layer into just the specific medical databases. The ones that I suggest for you are CINAHL Ultimate. I think it's called Ultimate now. CINAHL Ultimate, Medline, and Ovid. And I'll show you where to find those. So if you want to skip discovery because things aren't working out so hot for you there, instead of going to this search bar, you're going to hover over resources and go down to where it says databases. So resources, databases. Click on that and it will bring you to a list of all of our individual databases. We currently have 138. To look at only medical databases or nursing databases, you can use the subject filter, scroll down to nursing, and it will list all of the nursing databases individually. There are a lot of resources here that are fantastic, but not all of them are right for this class. So like I said, Sentinel Ultimate is right here at the top, Medline, and then if you scroll down to the O's, Ovid, those are your big three for evidence-based practice research and for peer-reviewed articles. So if you find yourself frustrated with Discovery for some reason, you can go straight to the medical databases, but start in Discovery. I think mostly you will find what you need. There is also a subject guide specifically dedicated to evidence-based practice. The subject guide is like a little mini website that we library staffers have built specifically for you on this topic. And to find that, you will also go to the library's website. Like I said, it's your new hub. Hover over resources. Eventually things will pop up, and then look for subject guides. This will give you a list of subjects. You're going to scroll to nursing, and then you'll see evidence-based practice. There's also one for nursing theorists. If you haven't had that class yet, remember that I said that. It will be very useful. So you can find more information about forming a PICO question, research articles, primary versus secondary, the databases that I mentioned, interlibrary loan, all of the things that we talked about are on this guide. So the quick link is libguides.maryville.edu/EBP. Find a lot of information here. If later on you feel like you need help, I am still here for you, as are my colleagues. We can be reached as a group if you email reference@maryville.edu. Yes, Jessica, I will in just a second. Thank you. You can email all of us at once at reference@maryville.edu. We also have a 24/7 chat on the library's website. You may have seen the little Ask a Librarian tab that pops in. That is 24/7. It's not necessarily me or my colleague Paul, the reference people, but it is a real librarian who has access to the same resources at Maryville that you do. And they are very helpful and have helped people at 2 a.m. as they're trying to do their research. You can also schedule a Zoom appointment. I've already had a couple of Zoom appointments with 601 folks, and I'd be glad to have more. So if you would like to schedule that, you can also do that from the library's homepage. Essentially, if you want to get in touch with us, just find yourself on the library's website. You can scroll down to Ask a Librarian and click the word help. And this will give you all of the different ways you can contact us. We even have text service. So if you want to text message us, we will get that the same way we would get an email. So feel free to utilize us. Like I said, this is what fuels me. I feel very motivated by helping people find the things that they need. So don't hesitate to let me know how I can help.